We're following two big stories. One of them, a war of words raging in Washington, D.C. as Governor Wes Moore and President Donald Trump clash over the crime fight.
Baltimore is a hellhole.
He seems to enjoy living in this blissful ignorance.
I'm going in depth on the impact it could have on you. Plus, the union representing DPW workers has a new leader following months of problems.
We're trying to get some change. This history right here.
We're hearing from the new union president and taking a look back at how we got here. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Fox 45 News in Depth. I'm Mackenzie Frost. The union representing Baltimore's Department of Public Works has finally reached a contract agreement with the city after months of negotiations. The deal includes a pay increase for union employees of at least $20 an hour, or nearly a 20% pay increase over the next 3 years. Hazard pay will also increase from 15 to 75 cents an hour. One day after that tentative new contract agreement was reached, the union held elections for new leadership. DPW worker Stancil McNair will be the next president, a new chapter for a union plagued with criticism from its workers. I got the chance to speak with Stancil McNair after he won the election about how his vision for DPW and the union will be shaped moving forward. Stancil McNair has been outspoken about what he has been frustrated with when it comes to AFSCME Local 44 leadership for some time.
There's no accountability, there's no answers. I'm completely tired, so it's like I want to give everybody a fair chance.
He decided to turn his problems into passion and stepped up to run for union president. During the latest union election,
we're here to try to shake things up.
More people showed up to cast a ballot than in several years.
We got a real election, real officials, and we're trying to get some change.
And McNair came out on top. Outside City Hall, we sat down to talk about his vision moving forward.
It feels so surreal, especially coming from where I come from. But I'm humble about it. It's I know it's gonna be a challenge because for so long, we had people in there that had a certain type of control.
McNair says more than 100 of his fellow union workers voted for him to lead Local 44, and that's a responsibility he doesn't take lightly.
The votes proving that the members felt a different type of way than what they was projecting to the city.
What's your vision? What do you want to do first?
Well, my first vision is to get everybody to understand we need to make more transparency and be more engaging as a unit, because if you have passionate city councilmen, passionate upper people in management, of course I'm gonna be passionate, and everybody on the same board, why isn't it that we collectively go around and make sure that everything is okay? You going out and talk to the members, the people that actually do the job, and I'm setting up no hearings, no meetings, stuff like that. Go out and see these people, take a visit, take a journey to what they do. And check up on our people, because that's who's hurting our people. When they out here doing these jobs, they being ignored of the simple things they want to stop. So now, I believe, me personally, I'm going to make my face known a lot. And my whole team is too, because we're about field work.
McNair says he feels he got to this position because of the people in the agency who know him. And even while we were talking, DPW workers drove by and said hi.
Yeah,
everybody knows you.
Yeah. Love you. All right. They love me. They see a lot of people grew up with me. They know me. I've always been a stand-up person. So it's just that now it's on a different level. I'm the president. So a lot of people know how I'm going to carry myself. Some people expect me to mess up and things like that, but that's expecting people to feel like that. So that's a part of the challenge.
As for policies, McNair says he needs to be sworn in and get a handle of what's already on the books before he really knows what to change.
I'm going to let everybody know exactly, and the first people going to know is the members. Respectfully, they got to know first before anybody else does. And so I want to carry a little bit different, because I want the members to be a part of the change we making. So when we come up with decisions, that's how we want to move. Their voice needs to be heard, because I know how I feel to be out there and your voice would be silent. So now we got a voice now.
After months of negotiations, the union and city leadership announced a tentative agreement for a new contract. One that includes raises for solid waste workers, but McNair says he hasn't seen the full details yet and isn't fully satisfied.
I honestly don't think it's fair, because And once again, this is back to like the admin thing. I need to sit down and see everything because I don't think it's fair across the board because I heard from the members. There's other members in other departments that feel some type of way, and as a representative of them, I don't want none of one department gets something and another department feeling some type of way. Everything should be across the board. And so I don't know if it's across the board what it is, but when I get all this information, I'm gonna let everybody know what it is.
Did you ever expect when all of this started and, you know, the investigations were launched more than a year ago into the culture, into the workplace conditions and all of the problems that were going on within DPW, you were one of the most vocal workers. Did you ever expect yourself to be a sanitation worker turned activist turned union president?
No, actually I didn't. All I know is that regardless of what title I was going, like whatever title came my way, I know I wasn't going to stop. So like, I want people to understand I'm not in this about a title. I could have been just still my regular self. I was going to make it, I'm still was going to try for a change. So now I got the ability to let my voice be heard in a better manner. And like now people got to sit down and listen to you. The people that didn't want to listen, they got you.
We spoke with some DPW workers ahead of the union's election. Many told us they hope the new leadership brings change within the union from the top to the bottom.
We got a real election, real officials, and we're trying to get some change. This history right here. And see, these people, if they know what they're voting for, they want change. Right now, they ain't getting no change.
We got an understanding and people respect each other. If you're high up, if you're a supervisor, when it comes to employees, it's the way that you talk to people. You got to learn how to do that.
Working out a new contract is a conversation that took all year. Mayor Brandon Scott promised raises for DPW workers during this year's State of the City.
You have the most important jobs in Baltimore. We want to make sure that you go home at the end of the day just as safe as when and healthy as when you clocked in. So we're investing in occupational health and safety improvements. And Mr. President and Councilman Glover, you'll appreciate this one. We will raise DPW wages in their next contract.
The mayor said that back in April, and at the time his office told us they expected negotiations to wrap up by the end of June. That deadline was pushed back several times before an agreement was finally reached on August 22nd. Now, we sent a list of questions to the union representing DPW workers asking if there's a timeline to ratify the new contract and why it took so long to reach an agreement with the city. We also asked when the results of the union leadership election will be made official and what the response is to the criticism from workers about the union leadership. We did not hear back as of showtime. Tension between DPW workers and union leaders has been building for some time. Earlier this year, I spoke with workers who told me they didn't feel the union was working for them.
The union, we don't have a union. You know, we really don't, because they totally aren't 100% for us. Yeah, they're totally for themselves.
And months before that, frustration with the union was evident during a city council hearing on the problems within DPW. At the time, Stancil McNair accused Councilman Ryan Dorsey of texting with union leadership while he questioned Inspector General Isabel Cumming on reports she published about the department.
The one thing we not want to think is the union. We came here to trust y'all, but if one of y'all up here is working with them.
A public records request revealed the conversation Dorsey had with union leaders during that hearing. One thread is with Stuart K., likely Stuart Katzenberg, the director of collective bargaining for the union. In a text timestamped during the hearing, Stuart says he appreciates that Dorsey, quote, took swings for us. The second screenshot shows Dorsey's text with Lee S., who is asking him about the dynamic between DPW workers and the union. Dorsey responds he, quote, has no idea what's going on, and that, quote, suddenly we're the enemies, presumably referring to himself and the union. The department's problems don't just surround the union. In July 2024, the Inspector General released her first DPW report showing employees were being deprived of adequate water, ice, and air conditioning. She released a second report just weeks later showing what she called subhuman working conditions, including inadequate water and broken sinks. The report also said some site supervisors were keeping things like Gatorade and toilet paper under lock and key, requiring employees to ask for them. Less than 2 weeks after that report was released, Ronald Silver died on the job. The medical examiner determined he died of hyperthermia or overheating. An IG report following his death revealed DPW did not have proper heat safety training. In November 2024, a second DPW worker died while on duty. Timothy Cartwell was fatally injured while collecting trash. Following his death, community leaders called out the department for having a, quote, pattern of neglect and toxic work environment. Earlier this year, the Inspector General released the results of her investigation into DPW. It recommended officials make improvements to facilities and conditions for workers who have been exposed to an adverse environment and negative culture. I spoke with the Inspector General about the changes she has seen in the department since she released her first report more than a year ago. The Office of Inspector General has completed several investigations involving the Department of Public Works over the last year.
Well, I can say, unlike a lot of things, that this has actually been an evolution. When we first started, there was no water. The conditions were subhumane. I mean, they didn't have toilet paper. The most important focus has to be the workers and the conditions that they're in and the safety of our workers. And tragically, 3 weeks after the reports, we lost Mr. Ronald Silver. And I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people.
A year after the death of Ronald Silver, a DPW worker who died on the job from heat exhaustion, Inspector General Isabel Cummings says the culture and protocols have changed. But that doesn't mean the agency doesn't have more work to do.
I believe it's better. I do believe that there's still a long way to go. The culture took a long time to happen. A lot of it was lack of training, lack of leadership, having a system that, the abused became the abuser. And we saw that over and over again, and we were told that over again. Because one of the most important things that the Office of the Inspector General did was listen. Actually talking to the workers and listening to what they said. That is what our 44-page report was actually about. What their concerns were, what they saw, and that's where we learned the most. And it is indeed having to change an entire culture. And it will take time, but there has been marked improvement. Because we went out on one of the hottest days in 2025, and the change was marked.
And when you were talking to those workers and listening to their concerns, did they also talk to you about their frustrations with the union?
Oh, absolutely. That, I would say, we heard from about 80% of the workers. And it was in the report. Their big concerns were that they weren't being heard, that they were being ignored, that their pay was the same, the fact that their hazard pay hadn't been increased since 1990, the fact that they were making the wages they were making, the fact that they reported these conditions and nothing changed. So their frustration was palatable.
But now the union has new leadership. DPW itself also has a new leader, and City Hall is committed to putting the agency on a better path.
I am hopeful that there will be continued change moving forward. It's always the will of the people, and it's the power of the people. And with this particular election, the fact that it was such a change, the fact that I think the frustration boiled over, I think it will be interesting, and I have to be hopeful watching going forward. It truly was, and it is, the workers of DPW that have made this change. The Office of the Inspector General gave them a voice, but they took it, and they're the ones that made everything happen.
Still to come, we're breaking down the war of words between Governor Wes Moore and President Donald Trump, how it could impact federal funding for the Key Bridge rebuild. The ongoing feud between Governor Moore and President Trump could have very real consequences for Marylanders. On August 24th, Trump took another jab at Moore and threatened to pull federal funding earmarked to rebuild the Key Bridge. His first direct mention of Key Bridge funding came in a post on Truth Social, where Trump said he gave Moore a lot of money to fix the demolished bridge, and he will now have to rethink that decision. The federal government first allocated nearly $2 billion to rebuild the bridge as part of a spending bill Congress passed under President Joe Biden. Right now, state officials say they're on track to rebuild the bridge by 2028. But a move from Trump to pull funding would likely spark a lengthy legal battle, which could delay that rebuild. It's also not clear if the state could cover the cost to rebuild the bridge without federal funding. Before that money was allocated, Governor Moore repeatedly said he had no backup plan.
We're not going to need a plan B. The objective and the goal and what we will accomplish is we will get to the 100% cost share that we'll have this year. If we can get to all the guarantees that we need, we are going to be able to get the Key Bridge rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible when the tragic and deadly collapse first happened. So we don't need a plan B. Plan A will work.
I asked Congressman Andy Harris, the state's only Republican member of Congress, what he thinks about the future of the Key Bridge. He says it's within Trump's power to revoke funding, suggesting Maryland could afford to rebuild the bridge if necessary.
The bottom line is that the president controls the executive branch. It is a stretch to actually fully fund the Key Bridge. That's not normally done. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the president rethinks the funding for the Key Bridge. Obviously, this governor has enough money to spend millions of dollars on suing the Trump administration, millions of dollars on woke ideas. The bottom line, maybe they have enough money to fund the Key Bridge as well. Although it was authorized by Congress, that doesn't mean it has to be spent. The president has the ability to do it. The actual language of the bill gives the administration the ability to fully fund it, but it does not require the administration to fully fund it.
Senate President Bill Ferguson disagrees with Harris's claim that Maryland has the money on hand to rebuild the bridge. He says the federal government should step in and has done it in other emergency situations like this.
This isn't just a regional bridge. This is a national asset. What I do know is that any additional dollars that Maryland would have to spend come from somewhere else. So they come from the reconstruction and rebuild of Route 50 on the Eastern Shore. They come from I-81 in Western Maryland. They come from improvements to 32 in Central Maryland. And so in every other case, the federal government has stepped up and recognized in emergency situations, we fully will cover the cost. I believe that should continue to be the case here.
I sat down with political analyst John Deedy to talk about the federal funding that could be at risk and how this could all play out. So, John, I appreciate your time. Let's talk a little bit about the impacts that we're seeing this back and forth that it could have on the potential for the Key Bridge and the funding. We know that the president has dangled the possibility of pulling the funding. How likely do you think that really could be?
I think, in my opinion, it's highly likely he's going to make an attempt. He has the power of the purse strings. And a lot of people have talked about, well, certain congressional actions need to happen. The problem is, the courts have basically rolled over and played dead for the president and have allowed him to take on a lot of additional presidential powers. And I think if he has an opportunity to do this, I think he will do it because it would send a strong message, not just to Maryland, but to 49 other states to say, stay in line and stay in your lane.
Do you think that there would be a legal battle or a challenge that the governor would file if the president did decide he wanted to go down that road?
I think a legal challenge would be filed by the governor and the state attorney general to deal with a situation like this, because it's not just the money. It's the fact that the Key Bridge is so important economically for Maryland, and the traffic congestion we have on these other roads now, and the money we're having to spend on infrastructure to deal with these types of things. I think they definitely have to file a suit in order to preserve this funding if Donald Trump decides to go this route.
Do you think that the governor is going to take a hit from all of this back and forth if he is, focusing on his own reelection efforts come this time next year?
I think he would take a hit for reelection because a lot of the other candidate, whoever the Republicans nominate, would say, Well, I may disagree with the president, but I'm committed to working with the president. And I think Trump's doing a lot of this to basically get under Westmore's skin and to make his life as governing the state of Maryland as difficult as possible. So I think this becomes an election year tool. And if they end up having a situation to go to court that save the Key Bridge funding and things like that, it only becomes something that dents Westmore. The other thing is, because of the delays, what happens is then construction doesn't get finished in 2028, 2029. You're talking about maybe 2030, 2031. And then people get more frustrated by the whole process. So I think there is a political dent as far as this. It's all well and good to fight the president on these things. If you make the big picture argument about the financial need for the bridge, this is one fight that's worth having with the president.
Do you believe that the people who agree with what the governor is doing, they think that this is the right approach, they believe that he is standing up for the state and the people of the state, are those the people who are already in Camp Westmore? Is he gaining any ground by doing this?
I think that probably he's gaining a little bit of ground with the people in Baltimore City as far as basically on the National Guard issue. I think he'll pick up a little bit of ground as far as if he has to defend the Key Bridge situation. But a lot of people are kind of frustrated with basically the back and forth, the fact that for months people told him, don't poke the bear, and he's poking the bear. And I think whereas Westmore 6 months ago said, I'm not part of the resistance, I think right now he's looking to grab a uniform and lead the resistance army. And I think that the governor needs to focus on some flattery more than on this contentious language, because a National Guard unit armed in the city of Baltimore would be a bad political look and a bad economic hit for the city.
All right, John Dede, I appreciate your insight as always. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The federal funding on the line and the gubernatorial election coming up next year. This feud with the president could impact Governor Moore's re-election bid. Moore is already seeing some competitors emerge, like local businessman Ed Hale, who announced his intention to switch his political affiliation to Republican and run for governor. There's also the question of whether Governor Moore will run for president in 2028. He has repeatedly stated he is not planning a presidential campaign, despite several national appearances, including on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris in the lead up to the 2024 presidential election. Trump has said he does not believe Moore has what it takes to be president, a criticism Moore has brushed off.
He says, you're not presidential timber at all. I imagine you disagree with that assessment?
No, I've been very clear. I'm not running for president, but it's interesting but it's interesting. The president seems to be more concerned about my future than he is about the future of the American people.
We'll keep you updated on the fallout between Governor Moore and President Trump as their war of words continues to unfold. This week, we asked what your message is to Governor Moore amid his ongoing feud with the president. We'll take a look at some of your responses after the break. This week, we asked, what is your message to Governor Moore amid his ongoing feud with President Donald Trump? Let's take a look at what some of you had to say. We had a lot of responses. First, I want to take a look at this. We have John and Boo Finister having opposite reactions. John says, don't poke the bear. Boo says, keep poking the bear. And Bonnie says he needs to shut his mouth and have some respect. Tony says, give it up, Westmore, and listen to Trump. Lauren says make Baltimore safe again. Debbie says get the city clean up and make it safe. Just stop it. We have a deficit. Fix the problem. And Joseph says keep it up. The best thing you may do for this state. Grow up, both of you. So we have people on both sides of this issue. That's it for this week's edition of Fox 45 News in Depth. I'm Mackenzie Frost. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.